Everfree Guardian, Chapter 3, Part 3. Still holding the invitation, he brought his hand up to his lips. Despite being a pony, Fluttershy's lips, the way she kissed, she was indeed human in the more intimate aspects of affection. That was for damn sure, but he still didn't know how to feel about it. Fluttershy was a kind and sweet woman, a caring individual that has a hard time with crowds. He respected her for going above and beyond, even conquering her fears for the lives of others. Those lives were often animals, but what difference did that make? He knew she'd do the same if he was in peril. Yet when looking at it from the eyes of a human, and just a human, wasn't this bestiality? She had the figure and personality of a person, but she was still a horse, an animal, where he came from. He didn't know what laws to abide by, and to top it all off, he was confused. There was a warmth in his chest that he hasn't felt for a long time, a warmth that he wanted to keep. It faded further and further as he got from Fluttershy's cottage. He didn't know why, but it felt like home. Before it all went to hell, that's what the cottage represented. Home. Stopping by the tree line of the forest, Nate looked back at Fluttershy's property, seeing the ducklings chasing Angel Bunny as he hopped along. Giving a small grin, he pressed his lips together in thought, before retreating into the Everfree, disappearing for another few hours.
Welcome!
A cheerful voice echoed throughout the sugary diner, as a pink earth pony mare was ushering in guests from all over town. There wasn't a single morsel in town who didn't know that the infamous party pony Pinkie Pie was housing another party. Seriously, you live in this town and the second the idea pops in your head, you already have a letter on your doorstep. Ponies of various colors, races, and genders mingled in the main area, occasionally wandering over for another sweet at the counter near the kitchen. Among those who attended was Fluttershy, Applejack, and their closest friends. This party was in celebration of a new face, which so happened to be the griffin that Rainbow Dash, another friend of Fluttershy's, mentioned was arriving hours earlier. Now that Fluttershy had seen Gilda the Griffin up close, she didn't know if the creature deserved a welcome, especially with what she was about to do when she had the Yellow Pegasus at her mercy. Who knows what could have happened if—
No, things are better.
Fluttershy has a lingering feeling of hope in her chest. She's pleading, begging for the Mother of Celestia to please send her human friend this way. Fluttershy may be timid, but she wasn't a fool, and she knew that Nate's shell was breaking. All he needed was a small push to interact with others around town. The trouble earlier today had certainly got ponies talking, so striking while the iron was dangerously hot was the final stretch. That is, if he was coming to the party. A little ways away from her, Applejack was conversing with a white-furred unicorn, a fashionista that ran the boutique in town. Confusion laced in the farm girl's expression, and by the look of her friend Rarity it seemed, she wasn't the only one who was uninformed about Rainbow Dash's old pal.
Who's this Gilda I've heard nothing about?
Rarity shrugged, fanning herself lightly before walking with her polar opposite of a friend to a nearby table.
I hear she's an old friend of Rainbow Dash, and that she's something as rare as a griffin.
Fluttershy fidgeted, upon overhearing their talk, glancing to her side when she noticed the resident bookworm coming to speak with her. After a short greeting, Twilight Sparkle was quick to the point with her questions.
You've met Gilda, right? What's she like?
Fluttershy could only respond with shy stuttering. She didn't want to give anything away that would effectively make her or Gilda a bad pony. The griffin may be nasty, and ponies have lines that they don't cross, but Fluttershy was a kind-hearted individual. She would see the most twisted of individuals and grant them the pity and kindness that they needed to turn their lives around. I mean, if she's able to simmer down a mentally unstable psychotic with weapons of mass murder, she could find good in just about anyone.
I'll tell you later, Twilight.
She turned back forward to avoid the topic, her ears shooting up as she noticed a familiar hooded figure in the audience, sitting near the back. With a smile, the caretaker approached the monkey with a boomstick.
Mate, you actually came!
The hooded human nodded, shrugging as he took a sip of the punch being offered here. I figured it was time. You did your part in opening me up a bit. If there are more like you around this town, then I wouldn't mind meeting them. Fluttershy blushed at the flattery, but didn't hide herself like she normally would. Instead, she stayed by the table, chatting and having fun with her human as the evening progressed. Applejack, seeing Nate was here as well, didn't find the surprise of his appearance unwelcome. If anything, the farm mare gave him a bone-crushing hug that she squeezed his face into her cleavage a bit too much out of pride. Applejack's hugs are the most dangerous. After calming down, the three enjoyed themselves, sharing stories about their day after they parted from one another, some of which didn't have anything interesting. Fluttershy was the opposite, having returned from her trip before the whole fight in Ponyville broke out. Nate listened and learned more about this world's creatures simply by Fluttershy's depictions of her trip. And Applejack, being humble and honest, didn't stop her shy friend from opening up herself, and enjoying herself the same way every pony else was. But that all quickly changed when the guest of honor arrived.
Gilda, welcome! I'm so honored to throw you one of my signature Pinkie Pie parties. And I really, truly, sincerely hope that you feel welcome among us here, pony folk.
Gilda rose an eyebrow at Pinkie Pie, whom Nate had a better look at now. She kept herself simple, but favored bright colors in her appearance. She was as every bit of a model as Applejack and Fluttershy were, but he swore her ass was bigger. It was hard to tell from this angle, but the simple clothing that she wore hugged her body like a snug blanket. Well, good to see the realism still shot in this damn reality. Fucking ponies. He shook his head as Gilda got zapped with a buzzer wrapped around Pinky's hand. A little practical joke to set them on good terms. Pinky believed it to have worked, but Nate, after observing the tics and subtle nature of the griffin, thought otherwise. Despite this, Pinkie Pie introducing Gilda allowed Nate to finally put a name to a face. Crossing his arms as he sat there, he observed with a steady stream of animosity and heated ire pointed straight at the griffin. It was a silent promise for her to tread lightly. Or else. On and on the party went. Various games were played, Gilda got pranked a few more times, some of which Nate actually chuckled at, and the music kept beating to the theme of the party. It was a nice change of pace to the silent bliss Nate was accustomed to, and it seemed Fluttershy was enjoying his positivity as well. However, after a while, Nate found himself drinking too much and he was in need of a restroom. Excusing himself, he made his way through the crowd of dancing ponies, pushing open the door to the male restroom. Unbeknownst to him though, a pair of eyes watched him as he entered, and followed him towards it. Upon entering the bathroom, Nate could definitely see whoever runs this place keeps it clean with passion. There was no smell, no sights, or any sounds that were undesirable. In fact, it smells like someone took scented candles of all types and laid them everywhere. If this kind of dedication is also provided in their food, then Nate is definitely coming back here more often if this all works out. Relieving him at one of the urinals, Nate couldn't help but feel this odd tingling sensation in the back of his mind. An old thought, a sense that was raising red flags, and all for the sole reason that had been the only thing that bothered him about this bathroom. It's too quiet. Usually you'd hear the sounds of partying for chatting diners outside of the bathroom, but there wasn't a single sound to be heard here. It was creepy, in a sense. When Nate approached the mirror in the bathroom, things began to seem more off. His instincts were screaming that something was wrong, and with only his pistol, he was left unprepared to deal with the close quarters of the bathroom stalls and tight spaces beyond the urinals. Washing his hands as he pretended to not notice, it seemed his would-be attacker had no intentions of hiding themselves well. All of the stalls slammed shut behind him via a gust of wind, and a figure flew past him with elegance and speed that he didn't know one could possess. Looking back at the stalls, Nate's eyes narrowed as he tossed the paper towels in the sink with a huff. Approaching the stalls one after another, he kicked them open, slamming them against the walls at the inside while trying to find the one messing with them. It wasn't long before the trap was sprung. Upon kicking open the last stall, Nate let in a sharp breath as a figure came down from above, slamming both of their feet into his chest. Flying back to the wall, Nate grimaced as he looked up, seeing the one person he didn't want to encounter standing in front of him.
Hey there, punk! I think you owe me a few bones for what you did to my beak!
With the party still going on outside, a few ponies were confused by the sudden disappearance of the guest of honor. Just a few moments ago, Gilda was right there beside Rainbow Dash and Pinkie Pie, having what they assumed to be the time of her life. But as they turned away for 1 second, she was gone the next. Rainbow assumed that she was heading off towards the restrooms and saw one of the doors closing when she peeked over the crowd. But now that she thought about it...
Didn't she just go into the male bathroom?
As for Fluttershy, she too grew worried. Her human wasn't back yet, and it certainly had been too long since he left to use the facilities.
What's taking him so long?
Ponies began to ask questions about Gilda, as they were awaiting her return, and as time ticked away, the ponies closest to both patrons grew more and more concerned. Then finally, one of them appeared. Nate Schmidt exited the bathroom, panting and huffing as his clothing were torn asunder. Claw marks and scuffs on his legs were the extent of his wounds, but what patrons didn't bother to notice during their fun was the amount of red that was blotched all over him. Sprayed across the lower half of his abdomen and completely coating his left leg, Nate was practically dripping with fresh blood, both his and someone else's. Closing the doors of the bathrooms behind him gently, he let out a strained wheeze as he stood there, leaning against the door. Glancing at the ponies, his opinion of these creatures in their entirety went down by a hell of a lot. If creatures like Gilda who were selfish enough to try what she did, then who's to say these ponies are any different? In some way, they're all humans, and Gilda had done what any human with carnal desires would do when having prey cornered. Trudging through the crowd slowly, no one seemed to care or recognize Nate's wounds, or the state that he was in. They just kept dancing and laughing like all was well with the world. Fluttershy, on the other hand, had her worries washed away when she spotted Nate heading for the door. Tailing after him, she sped up her pace as she approached him, but stopped when she took him in. Horror set on her muzzle as she shoved aside Rainbow Dash and Rarity, the former growing defensive, immediately.
Hey, watch it, Pat!
Rainbow Dash's words were slowly rendered mute as she got a good look at his back, which had one giant gash running down his back, which exposed enough flesh to let his spine poke out into the open. Rainbow Dash's eyes widened as Rarity cringed in the same horror as Fluttershy did moments prior.
Whoa, buddy, you okay? Goodness gracious, darling, what happened to you?
The entirety of the party silenced in seconds when they heard those voices show anything but joy and positivity. With all eyes on Nate, he didn't even bother to stop or slow himself. He kept trudging, not bothering to answer any pony, as he shoved the doors to Sugar Cube Corner open, and walked out. Fluttershy trotted to the door after him, looking outside as he kept moving, still dripping and drying with dark crimson fluids. Rainbow hovered up next to her, looking after him before turning to the direction that he came from. Flying towards the bathroom, she approached the male door that she assumed Gilda walked into. Opening up the restroom door, she was greeted to a horrific sight. Gilda was on the floor, her head crushed up against the urinal. Blood was pulled and splattered around her, cracks and holes in the walls along with a damaged mirror above the sink. It looked as if there was a struggle, and Gilda lost, badly. Yet even so, she was still alive, choking and gagging as she tried to breathe through her shattered jaws that hung over the edge of the urinal. Seeing her old friend like this, Rainbow Dash could only do what any pony else would do, and seeing the friend like this, she screamed. Oh, she'll be fine. She just needs an ice pack and a SpongeBob Band-Aid or something. She'll be fine in the morning. It's like a hangover. Not really, but forgetting about that, let's get on to our strong donators. Top donators: Peter Coulthard, J Tin Man, Darkside, Gauntlet, and only one thing. Zar630, Strix, Rayden, Narwhals, Black Moonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Austin Roland, CrazyColor557, Stu Hex, Will, Omicron Lyrae, Dospo, Delta Omega, Jack Cadge, RuneScythe9852, Madman Stan, Leslie Prickett, Hanson Norman, Stephen Bingham, LineGuys12, Sorcerer Constantine, Hudzaza, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.